Hail, light, thou transcendence of God. Hail, light, thou radiance from on high. Hail, light within the heart of mankind. I come to you this night to salute the light of God that never fails within your heart, and to amplify it, that you may understand that the reason why light is given to man is so that he may expand the talent of that light and learn to identify with it as the most precious object which he has ever received. I am aware of light throughout the universe. Even in darkness, the light shines, and the light is the light of universal purpose. The light is also the circling radiance of the sacred fire that is around your heart. That burning desire, that cosmic warmth that determines that both the fatherhood and the motherhood of God shall be served. What has been termed the minus as well as the plus factor, whose blessed union resembles the paraclete of God. I come to you then this night to bring you to the domain of light, that you may journey out of the envelope of your physical consciousness into the consciousness that is at higher levels as a temple of God. For there is a temple of light, and it is a temple of universal magnificence. When you understand that unascended mankind, by reason of the divine focus that is within them, may indeed enter the temple of light, that which my blessed brethren have called the temple of the goddess of light, it will bring to you a sense of our cosmic welcome as we bid you now to enter, if you will, our domain. Oh, I know full well that some of you might even momentarily, in the natural order of the human carnal mind, scoff at this possibility. But I assure you nonetheless, if you will receive the fiat of my faith, you may ride upon the wings of that faith into the tangible, to the eyes of the soul, temple of universal light and loveliness. For I have determined to come to you this night with an awareness of this temple and a sense of deliverance to your blessed selves, that you may be able, through God awareness and God power, to shed those senses that are so very much involved with the personality you wear, name, fame, and all of the things that you hold yourself heir to, when, blessed ones, in reality you are only all light. For light is the fabric warp woof of creation. It is the allness of manifestation and the allness of unmanifestation. It contains both the fabric of the temporal self as well as the fabric of the eternal. Mankind, lost in the maze of human creation, often does not understand the very magnificence of light in its cosmic adaptability. Light conforms to your needs in a human sense and serves the manifestation of that blessed word eternal, create. When God spake, and the word that went forth carried the fiat, create, there was an instantaneous summoning of the very valuable aspect of God obedience from the forces of nature. The volcanoes of the earth, the water of the earth, the fire of the earth, the power of life and light in the clouds of the air, in all areas of life, generates a constant sense of oneness with the power of God in this manifest power of the Logos, the fiat create. And when one considers that the very fiat create is linked with the capacity of light, and one considers the infinite power of that capacity, one is able to envision for himself that he need no longer tremble upon the brink of an abyss of mankind's incomplete manifestation of the perfection of God. For within his soul is that blessed and tiny seed. Like a tiny acorn, it holds that focalization of your very divine self and can be called into action by the power of light. Why do you think, in the name of heaven, beloved ones, that our brotherhood holds this immortal statement as a statement of God? The statement of the great white brotherhood, that fiat of immortal consuming fire, which produces the influx of the twin flames of the living God. Alpha and Omega. The light of God never fails. The light of God never fails. The light of God never fails. Do you understand, then, that there is no possibility for failure in the potential of the light within yourself? Why, then, will you depend upon the outer manifestation of human consciousness as though it had permanent existence, when in reality all permanent existence is vested in the magnificent God power of light right within your own blessed force field? Do you see how wondrous this is from the standpoint of cosmic or human availability? Whenever you want to call upon light, you can. And the very power of the blessed momentum which mankind can create will fulfill all those mandates of light which the law requires, or which the law of your mind and heart requires, as you seek to assist the Godhead and the brotherhood in the manifest weaving of a tapestry of light upon the planetary body as a haven for embodied mankind, as well as angels, elementals, and, of course, men. For many years prior to my ascension, I was able to know the folly of human reason and to understand how that human reason often wills out of existence the greatest factors in the universe, which have to do with the very heart of creation and the fire thereof. Do you think that the angels of record, the angels of cosmic service, beloved ones, could contain themselves in the manifestation of mankind's thoughts of limitation? Never. For the Spirit of God has always seen to it that the power of infinite faith was conveyed to the heart of every angel who desired to manifest service unto God. Do you see how then each individual, by the wings of their own faith, may rise out of the senses of human limitation into the limitless light of God that never fails? Thus, do you understand why the brotherhood holds this concept so magnificent? For the magnificence of this contact with God is the confidence of mankind in that fiat which produces the manifestation which the seeking heart requires in spite of all outer appearances. For the appearance world, from time to time, with all of its conscious sense of limitation, which mankind actually read into it, is the source of much of mankind's limitation. For the powers of darkness must latch on to that in yourself which you have permitted of darkness. Else they themselves would be quenched by the magnificent power of the light that is within you. The only way that they can gain any foothold, any possible manifestation within yourself, is because you contain within yourself, simultaneously with the seeds of light, some seeds of darkness. You will recall the statement made by Jesus that the prince of this world cometh and findeth nothing in me. When you pause to consider the validity of this expression taken from the standpoint of self, you will realize full well how that by the magnificent power of light you can take the scepter of your cosmic authority in your hand and blaze forth that scepter into manifest God control over every vicious human force, either created within yourself or any other mind. Oh, of course, there are sinister forces in action, but I assure you they have no power when you assert the power of light and effective God control. It is by reason of mankind's own sense of limitation that limitation proceeds to overcome him. When mankind understands that the power of light will assert itself and answer his call, immediately those bugaboos of human creation which you have allowed to take precedence in your world must melt into thin air and literally fade away. Will you understand that I am not giving you a buoyant sense of faith only to take it away? For when you call upon me, I will help you even in those darkest moments. For those who call upon me are fully aware of their own holy Christ self and that God control which is a part of their magnificent God presence and holy Christ self. It is in that awareness that mankind see the momentums of every angel, of every cosmic being, of all who walk upon this planetary body or serve the whole universal creation everywhere. Therefore, in their God presence, they are bowing their knee solely to God and solely to the election of the Christ consciousness. When mankind understand that, they do not have the hesitancy which otherwise human beings may have, who seem to pay greater allegiance to those famous individuals amongst mankind than they do to the heavenly hosts and all of the momentums of power which have been generated in their God search. Do you understand, blessed ones, that through your own God search you will externalize those magnificent virtues which will stand for I in the universe? For they can never be swept away from the moorings of your own positivity and God control. The whole power of the universe is captured in these magnificent thoughts of light as the creative force of God, working to preserve, to sustain, and to vivify every part of creation. I am called by God's grace the goddess of light, simply because I have paid allegiance to light for so long. Will you recognize then your own God control and the power of light's magnificence that may actually externalize for you in this very decade those powers of love, light, and life which you so long to see externalized? Then come with me tonight into the domain of light. As I say, open unto the cave of light. Open unto the brotherhood retreats throughout the world. Open unto the focuses of angels, and let light stream forth from the Elohim and the heart thereof, from the archangels and the heart thereof, from the planetary focuses of the sacred fire and the power of God, streaming as ribbons of light throughout the universal consciousness. I say in the name of the living Christ, let light stream forth, and let light be also a harmonious paean of cosmic praise, raised throughout the universe unto the glorious magnificence of the unity of one, the unity of the eternal, the unity of purpose, the unity of sustainment, the unity of the Holy Spirit, the unity of Christ consciousness, the unity of awareness, the unity of each erg of energy that is today manifest in the physical, spiritual, and mental universes, all interpenetrated by the love of the Holy Ghost and those fiats of the sacred fire that shall never, never, never cease to be. Forever shall they be, when all the world is grown cold in its outer manifestation, and those who have clung to the outer life rafts of human consciousness will find themselves no longer able to enter into the God magnificence, which itself is the sustaining power of life for all. Let men understand then that their life is not to be found in outer manifestation of the ego-centered consciousness, but rather in the sense of the resurrection, in the sense of the awakening in the sense of your blessed ascension in what? In the light. For the light is that into which you ascend, and the light is that from which you did descend. Hence, mankind, by the orderly progression of the law, in many cases the law which they themselves have set into motion, is the fulfillment of the fiats of God, descend, and that which descends is also that which ascends. Mankind, come with me then now into the temple of light, for I command in the name of the living God the manifestation of the temple of light all around you, that you may actually be within the force field of light is my prayer. Therefore, the stalactites and the stalagmites, in all of their magnificent crystal magnificence, triangles of light, squares of light, little cones of light, all hung in a magnificent congruency of the cosmic law before the very gaze of your spiritual eyes, is simply a reflector of that magnificent power of light in its centripetal and centrifugal action. O mankind, understand that light is now all around you, firmly affixed by cosmic law, for the very angels of light, the angels of the Christ consciousness, have held these blessed focuses all around you now for at least 3 minutes. And I want you to understand that I am, by the power of that light, going to call for a manifest stepping up of the vibratory action so that you may lose your physical awareness, certainly in that part which you are able to willingly relinquish, and find yourselves suddenly in a temple of God magnificent light. Beholding then the crystals, the cones, and the symbols, all of these fixed in letters of cosmic fire upon each stalactite and stalagmite, you will be able to understand that from below as well as from above, the magnificent symbols of God which are fixed in this cave of light may also manifest in yourself, thus hastening each one of you in the process of directing your cosmic energies into the very ascension you seek. But, beloved ones, do not forget the banner called the banner of practicality. Certainly heaven needs on this earth some representatives of the Holy Spirit, some representatives of the light. Therefore, some of you will remain for quite some time in your mission here upon this earth. You then will dwell still in the human maze of consciousness, where you will be expected to let your own light shine. Well then, beloved ones, if you let your own light shine, will you not admit to me tonight that you ought to obtain a little more light than what you had when first I came to you this night? Or do you feel that perhaps you have all light and do not need that light which I so willingly offer to give to you? It is entirely up to you to determine whether or not you will accept a cosmic being's word wholly dedicated to the fulfillment of your soul's longing and the nourishment of your heart's virtues. Beloved ones, you cannot possibly externalize light except you are willing to be light. Will you understand what it means to actually be light? For mankind have so often allowed the powers of this world and its limitations to steal their light and to soak it up by the sponge-like qualities of human ideas, which just dissipate it totally until at last you find yourselves not only bereft of that light which has been given to you from time to time, but also bereft of some of that light which is inherent within your own force field and is part of the determinate effort of life itself to continually sustain you upon this planet until you have fulfilled your divine mission and functioned according to the universal law. Yes, I am the goddess of light. In the name of heaven, will you create such karma as to dare to think for one moment that this messenger has made these words available to you? For I tell you that beyond the screen of words, the power of our infinite compassion for humanity is very great indeed. And together with Mother Mary, who spoke to you last evening, those of the ascended host who are called the legions of light are now positioning themselves around this property with drawn swords. And I tell you, they are over 144,000 in number. And they are only a part of our legions of light. Will you understand then the tremendous blessing that is being poured upon you this very hour? Will you understand the resurrecting and confirming Spirit of the Holy One of Israel, the Holy One of God, that is descending through the Christ consciousness, engulfed in cosmic light, coming from the very center of the universe, from the heart of Alpha and Omega, coming through Helios and Vesta and through my own consciousness into your world, as the dazzling step-up of the light continues to increase and pour out its radiance to sustain you not only for this night and the days to follow, but in the foreverness of God, to act as a sustaining momentum, assuring immortality to the universe itself and raising all life into the sacred fire and the sacred light of God. This cannot fail. This is the power of infinity focused in the finite time span. Oh, beloved hearts of light, I salute the God within you. I say, let the flame within your heart leap up. Let it vibrate. Let it sustain you toward a more glorious momentum. Let love be without dissimulation. Be not carried away of evil, but be carried away only of good, and of the power of the Urim and the Thummim of God, the power of internal magnificence captured in the ark of the heart of man. The great cosmic art, through that divine geometry of the Spirit, descends upon mankind as the power of light is continually stepped up. And while I am doing this, I am bringing to your physical bodies a sense of weightlessness and a sense of blessedness and a sense of the reality of God. Oh, blessed ones, I am not to blame, nor is heaven to blame, if you do not avail yourself of this opportunity and tune in with the power of light. You may do so with the greatest of ease, for now, while I'm speaking to you, there is a sustained momentum of the 144,000 legions of light that are here standing upon this very retreat property with their drawn swords and holding a focus of inviolate magnificence for all mankind. For I tell you that great streamers of light, like a giant pinwheel, are being carried out from this property, and the whole activity of cosmic light is spinning around this property and gaining greater strength with each turn of the cosmic wheel. Then, too, I behold these ribbons and streamers of light going out over the entire state, over the entire nation, and they shall cover the heart of the world until the world shall come to understand that by the power of light, the very planetary orb upon which you stand was created, and by the power of light it shall be sustained, for the very seasons of life are under God control, and the effective manifestation of your hearts in the days to come shall come about because you will respond to the passions of light, the outreach of the eternal God to each heart, to nourish each heart as though it were a babe before the living God. Do you understand then that maturity is also beyond the power of man, but ever available to the power of light? Hence, light will sustain you in that maturing manifestation which clearly reveals to all the manifest patterns of a son of God or a daughter of God, whereby they can, through the imitation of Christ's magnificence and the trailing garments with which I came, the goddess of light, sustain within the force field of heart and mind that outreach of cosmic intelligence and grace which will pour forth to every individual you meet, if, as you meet them, you will call unto me or simply breathe a passionate appeal to the very God of love to extend the boundaries of light from your heart to theirs, so that you may imitate the angels of heaven who never pass another band of angels in flight without saluting them and the light that is in the heart of all. Thus there is a continual amplification of the principles of light because of the God salute that ever echoes throughout the universe. For with each God's salute, each band of angels raise themselves into the power of infinite light. And as light is magnified in the world community, the mistakes of mankind shall be erased one by one until mankind shall understand that by letters of light, by a heart of light, by the power of light, by the beauty of light, by the strength of light, by the unfoldment of light, through the consecration of light, and the bringing together of light, they shall find their deliverance out of all evil into the return power of the Eden of God, the paradise of God, and the eating of the fruit of the tree of life, that they may live forever. I am the goddess of light. I now demand in the name of the living Christ that you stand before him and receive the amulet which I hold in my hand, and which those who are with me also hold in their hand. I shall place one amulet upon the forehead of this messenger, and simultaneously one of the workers of cosmic light that are with me shall place a talisman of the sacred fire and light of God that never fails upon every one of you, as a focus that is destined to open up your spiritual eye at the proper time and not before, to help you avoid contact with those psychic and degrading influences which are ever the activity of the human ego and ever cater to the human ego. Do you understand then that through the power of light you shall effect deliverance not only for yourselves but for all mankind? Little by little, the penetration of light, spiritual light, throughout the planetary body and to all people, to all mankind, shall bring the garments of God in contact with the garments of men. Their bodies shall be clothed with living light, and these white garments, pure and lovely, will enfold the soul in that sustaining radiance which shall make all whole. I am the goddess of light. I am the goddess of light. I am the goddess of light, and I sustain in you now, by my power and directive, through the Christ consciousness and the grace of the living God, this focus of light, that all who will may receive it through their devotion to light, for without devotion it will be impossible to retain it. But with devotion it shall mount up in size and quality until at last it shall become as a pranic star doorway before you, to open the way into invisible realms and to show you the real quality of light as the sustaining power of the divine within the human monad. I salute the God within you. I bow to the God within you. I am the God within your heart. For all ascended beings are one with the other, and one day you too will no longer see or behold the manifest differences among mankind, but only the one consciousness of the blessings of the living Father of all. I thank you. Oh, tu amo, rialaito, viana, sitamashaya, viala, tion, meta, zigomo, eto, ase. In the name of the living God, the banners and shields are affixed. Out of the pure light comes forth more light. For lo, I am. The sign of the heart and the head and the hand to you. May the peace of your presence abide with you. Wherever you are, wherever you go, may the glorious peace of your presence flow. Through days of service and nights of rest, may the peace of your presence keep you blessed. The sign of the heart and the head and the hand to you. Upon the cosmic cross of white fire of Lord Gautama and Jesus is sealed before you all the all-seeing eye of God as that beholder of good which establishes the kingdom of God among men. May his immortal love and his immortal peace and his immortal strength seal you before the court of the sacred fire. Upon Sirius and through the heart of the Pleiades, the eternal brotherhood saluteth you. It is done. O lovely earth, how beautiful are thy garments! And the angels of heaven have prepared the fountains of the deep, and the clouds of the sky, and all manifestations of nature as trailing arbutus, carrying with them the magnificence of God control of all natural forces. I come to you this day to bring you those cosmic efforts for peace within your heart that are the divine nature in its embryonic state for most of you, but that one day will become such a full measure of attunement as you have never suspected you were capable of. O mankind, let valor fill thy soul. The valor of not being subject to the whimsies of the world, or of the flesh, or of the carnal mind that inhabits that flesh form. Replace the carnal mind by the Christ mind, and let the Christ mind take dominion over your world. So shall mastery be obtained, for mastery is not always a visible manifestation. Quite often, to the contrary, mastery is an accumulative manifestation whereby the Holy Spirit raises you in consciousness point by point, sometimes when you least suspect it. I want to discuss with you then today the magnificent manifestation of nature that functions even while the physical body is asleep. For as the heartbeat is sustained, as the momentums of life are sustained while your physical body sleeps, the eyes of the soul often remain brilliantly awake and absorbent, capable of entering into those retreats of the masters of the Great White Brotherhood and attuning with many of the vibratory actions taking place there, so that you are able to find yourself developing in consciousness, awareness, and God control as you understand the role of feeding the mind and heart with those right actions and right thoughts while you are awake, so that when you are asleep, the gentle sails of consciousness will carry you across the mystic sea into that realm where you will hold consort with true reality. For so long as the carnal mind of mankind is activated, in many cases he is prone to doubt and error. When this doubt and error hold sway in his consciousness, it is sometimes difficult for either the angels of record or the angels of action to bring him to that cosmic faith and belief that will enable him to recognize the divine intent for him. When the individual is asleep, quite often the natural mind of man is also inactivated by this sleep, so much so that man's consciousness is able to hold in greater degree the full measures of faith, which are the natural gift of God, and thus have those blessed experiences that are calculated to arouse in him a greater awareness of the sacred fire, bringing back then over the ocean of God's consciousness the magnificent concepts he receives in the retreats of the Brotherhood. He finds upon awakening that a new strength and awareness has flowed into the fountain of the mind, and he is able now once again to reestablish with the divine presence a contact he seemed to have lost during some specific trial. Individuals are often tested, beloved hearts, for in order to find the way to the abode of God, to the temples of God, to the beauty and perfection of God, it is necessary that men lay aside certain aspects of the carnal mind that involve them in a snarl which keeps them bound in sense consciousness. When mankind surrenders that consciousness to God, joyously, willingly, and determinedly, so that he is certain in his own self that he will take that cosmic action which he knows is correct and right, regardless of mortal opinions or the thoughts of mankind, he will find that through the surrender of the personal ego, the divine id, or cosmic identity, if you will take over that God control, which is utterly necessary in this moment when mankind are still suffering the results of the residual selfishness of the nations, which literally is communicated from child to child, from parents to child. All over the world, the communication of selfishness and ideas of human or mortal gain seems to hold sway, to take precedence in the world of mankind. Seldom do people realize how their thoughts and feelings indent their identity. And when I say indent, I do not say constructively, for many times, in fact, almost every time that mankind finds that he is suffering the result of some action that has taken place, either from without or from within, he will find in tracing that there has been a certain action which he perhaps had overlooked in his world, of foolish thoughts and feelings that he allowed or permitted to enter into the domain of the mind. You have heard it said that no one can help it, that a bird of the air comes and lands on their head. You have also heard it said that they do not need to let that bird of thought build a nest in their hair. Beloved ones, the wisdom of the ancients is with you. It is the wisdom of God. You are dealing with a very old and ancient force, the master of cycles, the master of life, the perfection of the cosmos. And yet all around you in the physical realms, you see side by side human technological splendors and perfections existing in the world of form, right while human actions that occurred thousands of years ago, of human doubt, of fear, of records of death, of questionings, of mankind's struggle for faith, and you wonder just which ought to prevail. Strange that mankind should even wonder this. You would think that the manifestation of even outer science would convince them of the realities of God, but not so. They are prone toward that rationale and that rationality of humankind that generally brings them to a state of human despair. Thus life goes on exactly as it has gone on for centuries and generations. Yet the hand of God has been extended throughout the range of the centuries, and we have found in the records of life upon this planet that God has ever extended reality to mankind, yet only the few have been willing to heed. Only the few have been willing to read, to study, to show themselves approved unto God, to recognize the tremendous concentration and dedication that is required to succeed in a spiritual way. Mankind do not seem to mind the summoning of these energies in order to master a craft, a trade, or a profession. But when it comes to offering these giant energies of a man's life to the spiritual things, this seems to be, as you would say and have said, a horse of another color. Beloved mankind, we want you to understand that you are very much involved with the pace of your progress. Exactly how much dedication and service you render to God does determine the extent of your receipt of the descending blessings from God. Not that He Himself is whimsical or holding back from your life, but the matter is one of opening those chakric doors and those centers of reality within you that are enabled then to see and behold the grace of God that has ever been descending. For the role of the eye is most magnificent indeed. For unless a man can behold God, he cannot usually externalize Him. The witnessing of God is then a vital action in which all mankind ought to share. You may at this moment stop to realize once again that God is a spirit. And you may say, how can I behold a spirit? My physical eyes only behold that which is naturally manifest. Well, beloved ones, I am sure if you pause to think about it, if you trust in heaven, your eyes may be opened, and by the hand of heaven. Therefore, those who have not had those blessed experiences which some have had, which you have contemplated in others as most wonderful, and have wished for yourself, let me tell you that you ought first then, in seeking the kingdom of heaven, to ask for the power of unfolding vision, the ability to be able to distinguish spiritual gifts and graces, the ability to be able to reach up to God, to purify your consciousness, and the consciousness of vision. Do you understand that you also play a part in this whole matter by asking that you may receive? Well, beloved ones, if you will ask and receive, surely when it comes to the line of cosmic vision, you can also ask for vision and receive. When you begin to utilize the power of that vision to behold God in greater degree, you will find occurring in your world those natural manifestations of cosmic light that will go to work within the force field of your own being, often in an automated manner. This means that which you have called forth and called for will work when you least expect it, because human expectations themselves are not necessary to divine manifestation, providing you have already performed the necessary functions and implorations of the deity, calling upon God and upon his name in this age or in every age, that he should produce in you those miraculous changes in the power of vision which will expand its role in the development of your spiritual nature. If you cannot see, if you cannot envision, if you cannot draw those cosmic images forth into a focus of some semblance of reality in your world, how do you expect then that you will be able to absorb those magnificent inner visions of consciousness which are the divine forte? I want you to understand a certain statement which you have in your own world. A statement you have made that one picture is worth many thousands of words. Well, beloved hearts, this is also true spiritually, for by the development of the consciousness of the mind, by the development of the power of universal vision, man is able to extend his range of mastery to almost an unlimited degree. Perhaps it may be desirable that individuals shall close their eyes from time to time and practice the deliberate creation of divine thoughts. Let me momentarily explain. Supposing, for example, you wish to concentrate upon a rose. Beloved hearts, you may actually set before you a rose in bloom. You may smell that rose. You may, even if you will, nibble at a petal. It does not matter, for all your senses can well be involved in this visualization. Then close your eyes and begin to recreate that which is before you, always being careful at all times to see to it that the images you place before your consciousness are benign ones. When mankind begins to learn the process of inner visualization, the recreation of thought forms before the consciousness, he is taking one of the first steps in the ability and receptivity to understand that God works through the power of form and vision to bring to mankind even a sense of the formless realm. For it is sometimes most difficult for mankind to try to seek to distinguish in the formless realm. For there, where there is no specific or particular form, even the idea of light becomes a nebulous one. Through the form, the consciousness is first introduced to the formless. For in one sense of the word, the fourth dimensional concepts that are so utterly important to mankind often break through the outer layer of human consciousness at that particular moment when you least expect it to manifest. And you are then suddenly able to recreate by that specific universal numerical formula which your inner self knows and which will produce that latent thought, feeling, and visionary concept which the heavens wish to utilize as a matrix of divine intent. Do you see? I realize, of course, in giving you this specific formulation, that to some it may seem as a mere gibberish of words. To others it will appear perfectly clear and correct. But when you review my words as they are made available to you, you will be able to understand through that divine contact with your God presence exactly what I mean. And it is worth the struggle. For once you have overcome what seems at first to be a human struggle to understand, you will find that the system has a very wonderful way of developing in you, providing you will always stand on guard to see to it that no astral or psychic thoughts that flow from the carnal mind are permitted entrance into your word. Do you understand? You are expected, and your presence also anticipates, but the Christ mind within you is superior, looking over all things, and is intended to stand guard against the manifestation of all human thoughts, feelings, and desires. For I am aware, beloved ones, of the tremendous activity of human desires, ushering forth from the bottomless pit of human desires to seek to circumvent all cosmic activity of the light of God that never fails. For example, mankind is a-hungered, and he desires to eat. The temptation of the Christ, the universal temptation, should come forth to your mind at once, and you should remember that this is what the enemy said. Command these stones that they be made bread. Do you understand, then, that there is a very great temptation on the part of what perhaps the world might term junior adepts of the Spirit to at first begin the process in seeking adeptship of manifesting in little ways some tiny victory over another individual by seeking to utilize spiritual force to overcome some specific action in the world of another individual without any right of necessity to do so. Now there are cases when advanced adepts do find out that it is absolutely essential that they should take some cosmic action in the life of another for some specific reason. But, beloved hearts, you ought to understand how very dangerous this can be as knowledge in the hands of someone who does not understand this knowledge and the right use of it. You must always bear in mind that every human being has free will, and call unto their holy Christ self and to their beloved I am presence, and ask permission that the will of God be done in their life. You must always be extremely careful. Otherwise, conditions arising from the misuse of God's energy may produce a great deal of unhappiness in your own world, an unhappiness from which you will not easily recover, for you must handle all of the energies involved in your own situation as well as in the situation of another. Do you see? The students of the light, when they first come into the light, are often so captivated by the glories that they do not see the thorns or stones of stumbling that are upon the pathway. They do not encounter the difficulties that may arise as the result of their contacts with others. I want then this afternoon that you should understand, all of you, the great power of utter devotion to the sense of being your brother's keeper and holding the flame for him without allowing the garments of your consciousness to be contaminated by those who allow themselves to be pulled down into carnal and human renderings. I want you to understand, in one sense of the word, that you are painting a picture. For the creation of your picture, you require the pigments and you require the canvas. But, beloved mankind, above all things, you require the ideas. And these ideas must come forth in an orderly fashion. They must be turned about a bit in the mind, that the individual may decide whether or not these thoughts which he is turning about in his mind are correctly formed. For the formation of these thoughts is utterly important. Otherwise, you will fix them to canvas and sometimes find that it is most difficult to paint over or to remove, for you have allowed the pen of your mind and consciousness to write with the energy of God upon the canvas of manifestation. I want mankind to understand this law, to always feel free to think things over about your own spiritual life and make your own determinations based upon the glory of your holy Christ self and divine presence. I am not talking about the turning over of thoughts of acceptance or rejection of the teachings of the masters in your mind. For, beloved ones, these things require faith and ought to have faith. I am talking about human problems, those problems involving human ideas that people often seek answers concerning from us. Let them understand that they ought then to be patient with themselves and not always demand that all of the laws of the universe should immediately rush in to every little tiny human foible and produce an answer to the exact problem that they seem to feel is theirs. For example, quite often mankind consult with us when in reality they already know the answers. It is as though they sought some confirmation of that which they already foreknew. But, beloved hearts of light, whereas we do not mind this, you are tying up a certain amount of your energy, and you are bringing about a questioning in those activities which you ought long ago to have recognized as real and vital. I am speaking now about the graces of God that are inherent within your life. I am speaking about all of the wonders of your past life, all of the wonders of your past days in this life specifically, and also the accumulative manifestations of good that has occurred in all of your past lives. Do you recognize this tremendous weight of blessing? Well, beloved hearts, if you do, you will not be so prone sometimes when heaven seems to deny you some specific action, and you say to yourself, I just wonder why heaven has not answered my prayer. I have prayed for days and days and days, and no one has paid any attention to me. Beloved ones, I want you to understand that when heaven seems to turn a deaf ear to you, it is because in most cases the answer to your problem lies within your own domain. You already know the answer, and the economy of heaven is being practiced before you. Will you understand then that when you really are in a desperate situation and need that specific help which we are able to give, at that moment you will find the answer coming forth most readily. So do not be distressed, beloved students of the light, over any of these manifest conditions. There are many factors involving it all. For example, there is the whole record of your own karma. There is the record of the karma of others with whom you deal. There is also the cosmic law itself, which functions from the ascended master level and from the level of your own divine presence and Holy Christ self. Do you see then, with all of these factors going at one time, how heaven itself has to be very wise and delightful to be able to select what is best for all concerned in all of their answers, in all of their outpourings, or even in all of their withholdings. For there are times when men are tried by the withholdings of heaven, deliberately withholding what may be termed the latter rain, or the blessing of a particular specific moment, simply in order to bring about a greater test of the faith and the mettle of the faith of that individual. Do you see? I want you to understand then that the graces of God, which are continually being poured out upon the earth, are going to many sources for 3.5 billion life streams, most of whom at some time or another in their life do recognize their own limitations and reach out to the Godhead, means that there must be a very large number of intelligences or angelic beings in the universe to render answer, and also should pinpoint for you the multiplicity of the omnipresent consciousness of God that reaches out to touch 3.5 billion life streams in all states of consciousness and levels of being, answering mankind many times even before mankind have called. Do you see? But when an individual becomes a student of ascended master law and begins to apply that law, I think without question there is a very magnificent forte of ascended master law which is released to him, so that he then finds himself capable, under divine direction, of doing many things most wonderfully for himself without even, in effect, bothering or troubling the universe. Do you see how important this is? The time must be hastened when each individual is able to do for himself as God directs. Yet, as I am called the great divine director of the house of Ricosi, I want you to understand I am most earnestly interested in seeing that a God answer is supplied in all cases to those who require it. This may seem a bit contradictory. All I am trying, however, to tell you is that mankind must learn to stand upon his own 2 feet whenever he is able to do so. And then he will find that heaven, in a more than ordinary way, will pour out its splendid answers and assistance just when he needs it. But, beloved ones, if there is a pause in the release of that answer, do not immediately become confronted with the idea that perhaps God is away, or that heaven does not hear you, or that you will never receive an answer. For this is not true. It is a great hindrance indeed to human consciousness, because it intrudes a screen of nihilism between the individual and God, and has a tendency in the consciousness of the individual to actually annihilate the answer and divert it from his own sense. Do you see then that by the divine sense of recognizing the existence of God, whether or not you are able to always establish that contact with your presence which you desire, is essential in the manifestation of cosmic law instruction, and particularly as a bulwark against that factor of the dark forces or sinister forces which are called discouragement. For by the process of discouragement, the human mind, through its low tolerance levels, seems very quickly able to forget all of its manifold blessings, and instead of recognizing these blessings and cherishing them in the hall of their memory, to instead quickly rebuke heaven, almost as Moses did when he drew forth the rod and beat the rock, saying, "Where is this water? Where is this water?" For which he also lost the opportunity to enter into the promised land. I want you to understand that tolerance with the deity is tolerance with yourself. For there is no function whatsoever in your world that takes place from a divine level that is not brought about directly in order that you might in some cases be chastened so that you might bear greater fruit. Mankind should understand what they have called the road to glory, but also understand the crown of thorns and the floggings that may come to them by the buffetings of life. I want to see a very strong spiritual body, for you will have many tests in the years to come, and you will be called upon to produce a great deal of the miracle consciousness of God, even sometimes when the water of life seems difficult to find. I do not want those who are easily discouraged then upon the pathway of my direction, but I specifically would like to choose today from amongst you those who feel that they are willing to offer themselves just as they are to their presence, to receive all buffetings, all chastisement, and all activities which are the will of heaven. For by the will of God mankind are raised, and not by the whimsical manifestation of their own human will. I am called the great divine director, and not without cause. For just as great singing teachers have produced great singers to fill the concert halls of the world with those arias which are so recognized by mankind, so I have been most successful throughout the centuries by the grace of God to awaken in the consciousness of mankind some idea of the realities of life, that they do not become victims of those illusions of consciousness which are themselves content to walk upon the path so long as their daily needs be all supplied, so long as their prayers be all answered, so long as all things seem delightful. But the moment the slightest feeling of distress comes over them, they are ready to chuck it all, as some might say, and quickly go off in search of beauty and perfection from the miserable attitudes of the world itself in all of its chaos and confusion. Beloved one, there is no other pathway. Beloved ones, only the pathway of the living God is the pathway that leads to ultimate emancipation and victory. When you receive this victory, You will no longer find that you will be troubled by these conditions. And then what will you do but do as I do in many cases, involve yourselves in those activities of contact with others who are experiencing those self-same problems which you yourself are finally clean rid of. Isn't this a travesty? Beloved ones, isn't it a travesty? Think about it for a moment. We clean escape from this world and then find ourselves cast in the role of assisting mankind over the very self-same lessons which we ourselves learned so long ago. This is a victory of the sacred fire. It is a manifestation of the great compassion for God. And if perhaps today you seem distressed over my message, pause to think of how much good will come about when you find that moment of quickening and testing. For quickening and testing often go hand in hand. You see, sometimes as you face the greatest darkness, you find the greatest light. Sometimes as you face the greatest tests, you find the greatest might. And so you have to understand that it is the tested metal that withstands all of the onslaughts of the enemy. And for this reason, I am discoursing to you today to bring to your hearts those correct attitudes of will, mind, and spirit that are determinate in forging ahead upon the spiritual path and not allowing anything, and I have said anything, to distress you or to alter the determination of heart and mind in finding the realities of God and letting Him and Him alone become the fountain of your life. Individuals have not realized the power of light within their heart. They have not realized the power of life within their heart. They have in some cases minutely realized the power of love within their heart. And I want you today to stop and think what your own devotion and concentration upon the threefold flame within your heart can do. Will you right now with me concentrate upon your heart? Think of that beating heart as the point of contact with the crystal cord, with the divine life of your God presence. Think of that point of contact flowing to all others throughout the world. Think of your power and ability by God decree and design to expand the plumes of that heart. Tripartite. Beloved ones, you have the power. This is the blue plume. You have the love. This is the pink plume. And centered within, you have the wisdom. And this is the golden plume of illumination. Will you concentrate upon that which seems to be the lowest? Upon that which is the tiniest part? Will you understand that most individuals who have great wisdom are often without power? Will you understand that those with great love are often without power? Will you understand that those that have great power are often lacking in wisdom and love? I want you to understand then that as you bring about the balancing of the threefold flame of life within your heart, you will be performing that magnificent God act which will make you a different person. For you will see the need to steady when you are actually a being of power. You will see the need to love when you are actually a creature of intelligence or power. You will see the need when you are a person of intelligence to draw forth either power or love. When mankind understand the balancing action of the threefold flame within their heart, the blessings that come to them are almost untold, sweeping over the heart of the world and producing in that heart that awareness of others that is so fruitful and so grand. The whole activity which you are, the whole activity which consists of the body of God upon earth is one. And when you recognize that whatever you do is for that body, for that action specifically, that will produce the spark of vibrant life in that body, you will understand that that should always be placed first and the self last. For then the greatest benefits will come to the self. For as all accumulate all desire for the body of God upon earth, all greatness and light will flow into that body of God upon earth, and all will share in the influx of these blessings, which permanently will correct all human problems and bring all the fountain of the flame in all of its expanding uprise into the ascended state. I thank you. Gracious children of the one God, I come to you tonight in manifest awareness of the Holy Angelus, at which time, as the pause honoring God and heaven occurs, mankind may feel the celestial carillon pulled by angelic hands, signifying the end of the day's work at every hour. Have you thought upon this? That every hour is the Angelus somewhere upon this earth. Well then, beloved hearts of light, will you think also of the great human need for healing? How mankind continually, because of the misalignment of their precious energies, do carry burdens both of mind and body. I thought before I came to you this night as to how, by your faith, I could assuage some level of human grief and bring greater peace to all. When my son, Jesus, was touched by the woman who had spent all that she had in search of a physician to dry up the issue of blood with which she was plagued, it came to pass that as she touched the hem of his garment, the issue was dried and healing was bestowed. as I came, I spoke also to those angels that together with Lord Raphael do so much concentrated service to mankind. And I asked them, one and all, to come with me. This they agreed to do. And so the trailing garment which I wear tonight is one charged with healing for body, mind, and soul. I do not say that all can summon those vestiges of vital faith that will produce the cosmic miracle in action now. But if your faith is large enough, I can assure you that you will be healed by the touch upon the trailing garment which I wear, thus producing in effect that which El Morya pleaded for in his initial application to the karmic board, as the class was convened and before, asking that in honor of Saint Germain, who was my own blessed protector Joseph, mankind should receive the touch of the miracle hand of God, to give some another chance, and that they might perceive the great love heaven bears, simultaneously with the hand of chastening, warning unto mankind. Long ago, when I spoke unto the children of Fatima, in my appearance there, it was to speak of diverse conditions coming upon the earth. O beautiful garment of cosmic loveliness, O fruitful abundance of the sacred laws of God, how thou hast been trampled upon again and again by human feet, until the sands in the hourglass of mercy seem to be utterly depleted, and now in the midst, toward the end of the cycle, we wonder how we can avert the return of man's recalcitrant energies upon his own head. Yet we still pray for mercy and forgiveness for those hearts that have so carelessly trampled upon the very garments of cosmic loveliness, which are the fabric woven with angel hands and endowed with a sense of the eternal womanhood of God. You have thought of him as Father. Think also of God as an immaculate mother. Of old and previous ages, this was called the cult of the mother, because it represented in the children of men the cultivation of those beautiful spiritual energies which are your own blessed forte. Never from the heart of the immaculate image of God has he desired to see harm come to any of his children. Oh, how through the centuries heaven has worked, while the callousness of men has continually caused such sorrow to those of the angelic hosts, and to those who are the true servants of God upon the planetary body. When we pray the great prayer for all souls It is a prayer of infinite compassion. It is the prayer of the universal mother. It is the call unto God that compels the answer. And when mankind do not heed that call, the return of mankind's negative energies upon them appears as a chastening that cannot always be averted. For the great drops of cosmic mercy that are the passions of the living God for his children, that they remain not ever in the vale of human tears and sorrows, is one that is very near and dear unto my heart. Tonight I have been selected by the hierarchical masters of the karmic board to present to you a solemn warning that upon all mankind will destruction come. In some cases, even the good will suffer side by side with the evil, for it is not always possible to exercise cosmic discrimination. When the grossness of darkness manifests, all are subjected to the veil of darkness. Only the light of the heart remains to cheer those souls who recognize with full devotion that tremendous eternal love ray concept that connects their heart through the darkest night with the heart of God. And oh, how in reality, through the avatars, the angelic hosts, and those stars of light that shine in the world, God himself has flashed forth tears for humanity, because humanity's concepts have become so gross. The land is plagued with darkness upon the screens of the invention of the motion picture. The land is plagued with darkness over the churches devoted to honor my Son's name. The land is plagued with darkness as the political candidates struggle among themselves, seeking a temporal crown. And how few are the leaders pledged to give to mankind a divine equity upon which men can rely. I am married, and focused within my heart is the offering I long ago pledged to God, to be a representative of the universal mother. Thus have I found and apprehended that entrance into human struggle that is aware of the darkening clouds gathering over the world community and seeking to obscure the sun shining in his strength, the cosmic Christ consciousness, the blessed awareness of the pains of mankind, which are so unnecessary. Had the world in pure truth long ago chosen to have hewn out the manifestation of their lives as though they were a cosmic statue of eternal grace and loveliness, endowed with the vibrancy of immortal life, all could have been averted in the triumph of heavenly reality, as today, now in time, all the world would be singing the song of universal redemption. Do you see, O mankind, how fruitless is the present struggle, and always has been? Through the ages, human struggles are so unnecessary. They are only a vying in and among mankind with one another for those trophies of human desires that in reality are as straw cast upon an altar to be burned. Those things that are worth living for are eternal things, values which are cloaked in part in the manifestation of abundance upon earth, but that in reality, O blessed ones, may become your own as you yield your blessed consciousness to the light patterns that emerge so victoriously in such a magnificent parade of cosmic values. It is never enough for mankind to simply have appreciation. Heaven will only be satisfied with your manifestation of light. To appreciate the value of light without distributing its great tributaries of light into your consciousness is an error of humanity. It fulfills that ancient scripture that mankind draw nigh unto God with their lips, whereas their heart is so frequently far from him. This is because the education of human values concerning divine values is somewhat nondescript in the world community. They do not understand just what heavenly values are, for they do not allow the screen of the mind to reflect those values and thus feel the magnificent passions which are the nature of God. Long ago, in coming to Bernadette, I saw the heart of a child and how this child suffered because the crassness of mankind would not receive her thoughts. The revelation of universal grace that is poured out from heaven to so many souls not always known among men has not in so many cases ever been seen by them, and only the heart of a world mother can feel and see at inner levels, if necessary, even through my angel representatives. Think about this, O mankind, for each angel peeping through the veil betwixt heaven's experiences and the experiences of earth are in reality my vision and the vision of the mother of the world. Her cherishment for God's children does not exclude any, but is given to all. Tragic, then, is the impending doom hanging like a sword over the heart of the world, for the elementals have even communicated recently with one another and preparing to execute cataclysmic strands of destruction that have only begun in the world order, unless the teachings of God shall be fulfilled in the hearts of many men and women presently totally dedicated to their own selves, without understanding the great needs of humanity. I am Mary. And as I come to you this night, it is to suggest to you a plan that perhaps the Lords of Karma may hear, whereby through the acceptance in your heart of the burden of the world, you may be able to pull and create a little tug upon the heart of God through the Lords of Karma, that mankind may be at last relieved of some portion of their burden, and so the great law may be assuaged, and those universities of the Spirit be established where mankind can gather to learn the laws so beautifully taught by my Son Jesus. O mankind, let your faith not be in that which condemneth, that which is of the carnal mind, but let it be of that faith which valiantly succeeds. Otherwise, that which is coming upon the earth will not be pleasant to relate, nor will it bring joy or delight to the heart of God, or any angel of heaven, who will of necessity avert their gaze from the destruction mankind have wreaked upon mankind. Now then, as a cosmic mother, I come to you in that fond hope still, that you will think as to how you may unify, how you may create greater faith among the multitudes. What difference does it make when so many hearts are seeking what they think of you or your opinions? 100 years hence, how many of you will remain in physical embodiment to behold whether or not you have exercised your cosmic trust properly? Do you see how important it is then that the torch that must pass to the ages may well come to some of you with the flame extinguished? Because the woes of mankind have grown very great, and those who are heirs of this age will find themselves bereft of much of the intended reality that ought to be conveyed. I stand today at the Good Friday concept of man's destruction of Christ values to plead with you before it is too late. In the name of heaven, blessed ones, do not think that my voice that is crying to you tonight is crying in vain. For surely some among you and among mankind will see the reality of the Christ crucifixion continuing through this present age. Even at Christmas, they have only commercialized upon the value of the love of my Son, intended to bestow the crown of life upon the ages. They have sent gifts to one another. They have made merry, and they have manufactured destruction rather than construction. The plan I bring this night is one of cosmic construction through the hands of men in whom I have vested a sacred trust. Will those of you who will accept my trust this night, the trust of the ages, to preserve the Christ values within your hearts and the hearts of all mankind, stand at this occasion and recognize that only by a pact of pure love fulfilled among men can we now preserve intact in the world community that undying love which will not crucify my Son afresh, nor put him to an open shame, but instead will exalt his name and the name of God high upon the pole of life and its values, that now the bronze serpent may be raised in the wilderness anew, a symbol of man's victory over death and over mortality. Must your little self triumph when your giant God-self may find its winged victory in the world community, and the triumph of every heart will sob unto the victory of life. I am victory over the defeat of human thoughts and feelings. I am victory over all distress that is brought to mankind, those reelings that bring to his heart awareness to confess his failures to start in this moment of world turmoil, to reverse the process and gain for all that cosmic coil, serpentine, caduceus action up the spinal ladder of cosmic progress, to where the winged victory of the mind at last represents the law, and the law in all its kindness, fulfilling the brotherhood of man as design most holy and sign most pure, that enables all mankind to endure those tests in all their ageless purity and righteousness. For all can triumph through the light of the eye of God, through the light in the mind of Christ. The radiance of my Son establishes this night the unity of the one. He who rides the white horse to victory, ruling with the rod of iron, shall unify the nations, triumphing in all as the Christ pattern of all ages. I, Mary, salute you. I, Mary, salute your soul. I, Mary, pray God to make all whole